The only people who don't want to disclose the truth are people with something to hide.
And so now, without further ado, I give you Victoria Jackson's latest, most updated edition of There's a Communist in the White House.
It seems these days I'm in a haze and I can't concentrate on things, can't eat or sleep, feel incomplete and kinda scared and creepy. I look over my shoulder lots and shudder. When I watch TV, I bite my nails and cuticles and watch my words very carefully. Remember flag@whitehouse.gov? Remember when there was an email from the White House and it said we were supposed to turn in our friends and neighbors if they didn't agree with Obamacare? Remember that? And it disappeared very quickly when people got... Well, I reported myself twice. I was furious. I'm like, that is so communism. You don't... I'm not going to... No, we're allowed to think things and the government doesn't have to know. I bite my lip a lot and fidget with the buttons on my blouse. Why? Because there's a communist living in the White House. Why aren't people shocked or something? Why aren't people up in arms? Does anyone read history or see red flags or hear alarms? The streets are filled with deaf and dumb as I squeak like a mouse. There's a communist living in the White House. My husband really misses me. My parents think I've gone crazy. Only Glenn Beck understands me. And of course Sean Hannity and Huckabee. But you know, besides those three and the sweet people who drink the tea, there is no one else who can see the communists living in the White House. Now, you may say, do I have any evidence to support my supposition? And I'll say, well, where do I start? Let's see. His mother was a communist. His father was a communist. And when they abandoned him, his grandparents were communist. And his childhood mentor, Frank Davis, was a communist. And his church in Honolulu, which the Unitarian one, which I learned about in Aaron Klein's book, The Manchurian President, was a Marxist church, and it actually hid Vietnam draft dodgers. His friend was William Ayers, who's a communist. His church of 20 years preached Jeremiah Wright. It was black liberation theology, which is not Christianity. It's Marxism disguised as religion. He taught a course on Saul Alinsky, who wrote the book Rules for Radicals, which is dedicated to Lucifer. He said on the campaign, he had Marxist professors, quote unquote. He said on the campaign trail to Joe the Plumber, "Spread the wealth," which is a direct quote from the Communist Manifesto written by Karl Marx and that other guy. He, let's see. When he became president, he took over the banks and the cars and of course healthcare. He took over healthcare even though we didn't want him to, which is what Hitler did when he first got into office. He appointed Van Jones, an avowed communist, as the green job czar. Now, a capitalist president would never appoint a communist as an advisor. Now he's trying to take over cap and trade, to control how long our showers are, and he's already controlling the light bulbs. And let's see, do I need more evidence? Maybe I have... Did I forget anything there?
Well, Victoria, as long as you asked, you might want to mention that in the 1990s, President Obama, evidence shows, was a member of the Socialist New Party, which sought to infiltrate the Democratic Party and push it so far leftwards that it ultimately becomes a socialist organization. Sound familiar? And the New Party was founded by members of the Democratic Socialists of America, which started the Progressive Caucus, which has been rubber stamping President Obama's radical policies and legislation since he came to office. And as long as, Victoria, we are on the subject of the 1990s, you mentioned Bill Ayers, but we should take it further. Obama and Bill Ayers served on the board of the Chicago nonprofit The Woods Fund and funneled money to various radical communist-oriented organizations, including the Midwest Academy, which is founded by the Alinskyite Heather Booth, and in fact the Midwest Academy is dedicated openly to teaching the Saul Alinsky tactics of direct action, confrontation, and intimidation. Alinsky, of course, Obama was a 1990s community organizer in the mode and model of Saul Alinsky. Well, you might say that the Midwest Academy might no longer be relevant, again, funded by Bill Ayers and Obama on the board of the Woods Fund, but they popped up again during the 2008 presidential campaign when the Midwest Academy executives helped to train President Obama's first campaign volunteers. It was called Camp Obama. Remember that, Victoria? And as long as we're on the subject of the Midwest Academy, again, funded by Bill Ayers and President Obama on the board of the Woods Fund, they are right now the leaders of Midwest training the AFL-CIO, the SEIU, and really a who's who of unions in the tactics of direct action, confrontation, and intimidation, and likely of hijacking the economic crisis. So it seems that riots might be coming to a city near you, including possibly in Chicago during the G8 and NATO summits. Watch out if you're going to be in Chicago. Let's take it to the White House, Victoria, where we have Leon Panetta confirmed as Secretary of Defense for the Obama administration, and before that appointed by Obama to the head of the CIA. Well, Panetta, it seems, and I reported that at the height of the Cold War, he was tied to pro-communist organizations, including the Marxist-oriented Institute for Policy Studies. And oops, Leon Panetta, the Secretary of Defense, even keynoted the conference of a pro-Soviet anti-war group during the height of the Cold War. It's called the Women's International League for Peace and Freedom, the WILPF, which, by the way, the founder of the WILPF was honored by Panetta, who, while he was a congressman for California, had a very strange voting record that some have indicated may or may not be pro-communist at the time. And speaking of the White House again, and communists, and the height of the Cold War, let us not forget John Holdren, President Obama's science czar, who visited as vice chairman of a group that was actually accused of providing vital nuclear information that helped the Soviets build the atom bomb. Well, guess what? Holdren was the vice president of this group. It's called the Federation of American Scientists, and he visited the Soviet Union at the height of the Cold War. And Holdren, by the way, was also on the board of directors of a magazine, the Bulletin of Atomic Scientists, that is also associated with those same traitors. And then we have Van Jones, who you mentioned was a communist, but get this. Van Jones still sits on multiple boards, including the Presidential Climate Action Project, the PCAP, I talked to its director, that has been advising the White House. Van Jones, in other words, on boards advising the White House right now. Back to you, Victoria.
Maybe I have lost my mind or have been drugged by some narcotic. Maybe I'm in a movie called 1984, or I'm just idiotic. But if I'm in a dream, fast asleep, I think I will just try to keep my eyes shut till this goes away and I awake to a happier day. When my ukulele does not play this song of dire distress and dismay, this song called There's a Communist Living in the White House. Everybody, there's a communist living in the White House. Everybody, there's a communist living in the White House. Now what are we going to do about it?
The only people who don't want to disclose the truth are people with something to hide.